Okay, so here's how it all starts out. This is 6 layers of 2-inch thick styrofoam. Each layer is glued together with monster glue in between. I added some bricks and weight on top and left it there for 24 hours. I also wetted the layers with the spritzer gun in between. I sketched out what I wanted the gargoyle to originally look like on the top layer of foam, so I knew what to go off of when I started carving. I used such tools as a handsaw, a couple of different knives, Dremel tool, and different grades of sandpaper to get through the layers, one layer at a time, to slowly start forming up the gargoyle. Be careful when using knives because you can obviously cut yourself, which I of course did, but I highly suggest a hot knife or hot wire tool, which will make this a lot easier, which I will be using from now on. Here you can see I just got through the first layer to get to the wings because I wanted the wings to be behind the body. I just carved around the outside of the lines of what I originally drawed on there and started sanding it down to get to the curves of the body. Here's just a side view to show you how many layers I'm actually working through as I start carving it to kind of get into the detail of what the shape I actually want for the gargoyle. Using sandpaper, very slowly I would start to round out the face and carve down the areas that I had already drawn on there. As I started carving them out, I started redrawing it on there just to know exactly where the lines were that I had in mind. And this one's showing as I'm working down the body just a little bit further at a time, leaving the mouth in the place. I saved that part for last. Here you can see I'm keep working my way down. The body's getting a little bit more detailed, using a Dremel tool to get into those small areas such as the mouth and eyes. Here you can see the body's all carved up and he's sitting there all nice and pretty. Here you can see I've got most of the body carved out and I'm just down to the wing areas. And I used a small grit sandpaper to really smooth out that foam, using a Dremel tool to get into muscle lines and certain details like that. It's really easy to work with. It just is very time consuming. Here you can see I sanded down the one wing on the one side to where I wanted it. I had it smooth before I added in detail on the inside of the wings. Using a Dremel tool, I slowly started adding in a little bit of detail by just pressing in on the Dremel tool a little bit at a time in no specific pattern, and it looks really good. Here's the Dremel tool as I was using it to just kind of do a non-pattern inside the wings, which is just a rough sketch inside the wings, and it ended up looking really cool. Here I'm showing you that I have one wing already done. It's too hard to try to get in those vein lines in the wing, so I just came back with some regular caulk and caulked in some lines once I got the detail on the wing that I liked. And here he is with both sides of the wings done. He's just about ready for paint. I just don't have the back side done yet, and even though it doesn't show, I still want to continue on with detail and add some spikes and stuff onto the detail. I also added some horns up on the top of his head along with the smaller horns because I thought it looked nicer. Here is what the back side looks like before I ended up adding spikes down the back. Here's a close-up look of one of the horns. I just cut a small piece out of leftover chunks of styrofoam and just sanded it down until I had the shape that I wanted. And then I ended up just carving out a part in the back of the body down his tail and glued it into place. Here you can see an area that I carved out to place the first spike into the back side of the tail before I glued it into place. Here is one spike now in place with glue. After it was glued into place, I went around the edge with caulking to make it all nice and smooth. And here it looks like it's all one nice piece, all caulked in and nice and smooth. There's a lot of lines on the back, but that's fine. That adds really good detail later on when you go into the painting process. And here's what it looks like prior to paint with all the spikes down his back. Now I'm starting the painting process. I painted in all the darkened areas in with black first before I covered the rest with paint so that the black would actually show through. Now here you can see I went over the top of the black with a roller very lightly with a product that's called Dry Lock. It's a white paint, but it leaves a very gritty stone-like look when you're done, and it makes the styrofoam very hard and secure. And here is just another look at after I have used Dry Lock on him before I painted him the actual color that I wanted. And here's what he ends up looking like. I just went over with a dry brush painting technique with a gray color, and the black ended up showing through, and he looks like actual stone. I think he turned out pretty good. And here you can see what he looks like all finalized. He's sitting on top of my cemetery pillar. He makes a nice addition to the cemetery entrance.